Tax season is right around the corner, and in today's episode, we are talking about what to do with your tax refund to set yourself up for success. If that's of interest, stay tuned.
Sugar Daddy Podcast, yo. Learn how to make them pockets grow. Financial freedom's where we go. Smart investments, money flow.
Welcome to the Sugar Daddy Podcast, where we help you build a clear financial plan so you can feel confident and in control of your money. If you are a first-time listener, welcome. We're so glad to have you. And if you have been with us from the very beginning, we are glad to have you back. So thank you for tuning in with us every single Wednesday.
Hey, babe, what are we talking about today?
Today, we are talking about taxes and if you're getting a tax refund, what to do with it to set yourself up for success so that you don't feel like you have squandered whatever refund you are getting, if you're getting one.
Yes, the goal of today's conversation is if you are actually getting a tax refund, what are some of the things that you could do with it to set yourself up in a better financial place?
Yes. Okay, let's just jump right in because there's a lot of chatter every tax season on the internet that is like, if you are getting a tax refund, it is because you did something wrong and you gave the government a free loan. So let's just get right in and address that.
I'm not going to say you did something wrong
Okay.
because wrong implies, in my mind, like a penalty associated with it, like a negative outcome, a negative scenario.
Okay.
And it's not necessarily a negative scenario. So if you're getting a tax refund, what that means is that you paid more taxes out of your paycheck. So we're just going to talk about W-2 income. You paid more taxes out of your income throughout the course of the year than you needed to.
Okay.
So the government has your money. And the way that people kind of frame it is that you essentially gave the government a free loan, which technically, if like they say you got a tax refund of $5,000, they had $5,000 at some point throughout the course of the year from you that they were probably using for something else. So they were getting, quote unquote, a free loan. But I'm not going to frame that as like you did something wrong.
Okay. What about the people who maybe intentionally do that so that they can get a refund? Like some people really like getting a tax refund. What about those people? What would you say to them?
I would once again take the next step further and ask them why.
Mm-hmm.
Dig into, their psychology around money,
Mm,
their behavioral finance aspects there to kind of see like what is it about getting a refund why is that a goal of yours?
yeah.
Because I would almost argue like I would prefer like to say for easy number standpoint, if I got a $6,000 tax refund, that's $6,000 if you had it throughout the course of the year in your account, even just a high yield savings account, you'd have more than $6,000 at the end of the year if you were saying putting $500 a month into the account.
Yeah.
So what is it behind that? Like I would argue maybe they have a hard time saving and they would much rather have that lump sum at the end rather than the habit of saving throughout the course of the year. But once again, like I said, it's taking that step further to kind of examine you as an individual why.
Okay.
Now, like I would prefer to maybe even owe the government a little bit or break even than have this large tax return personally.
Well, I was going to say most of the time we do owe a little bit, not anything egregious, which then I kind of internalize as, oh, we did this well. We didn't give the government a quote unquote free loan. But last year we ended up getting several $1,000s back. And I was like, oh, I'm so surprised. But it was actually the perfect year for that because you tore your Achilles and we had a lot of medical expenses. And so we just literally put that money into the high yield savings, knowing that we were going to use it to pay all these bills that were going to be coming in. So last year, for whatever reason, it worked in our favor. But typically, we owe a little bit. We don't
Yeah.
usually get a refund.
The idea behind it is that if you're doing the proper planning and you have a W-2 income. So like ours is going to be a little bit different because I'm self-employed. So we have some variations there. But for someone with a W-2, it should be a little bit more predictable for you on how to do that.
Yeah.
And, like I said, I would just take it that step further to kind of determine, hey, why do you want a large return? Because if you're already have in your mind you want to do something with that money, why weren't you saving throughout the course of the year to do that? What was preventing you from doing it?
Right.
That's the only thing. That's the only caveat that I have.
Okay. Well, today's episode is really for the people who are getting a refund, whether it was planned for or maybe unexpected. How do we use the refund to set ourselves up for success going forward in the remainder of the year? What
Well,
would you
well,
say to those
first,
people?
it would start with what are some financial needs that you have when it comes to your overall financial plan?
Okay.
So, for example, some of the early phases of financial planning, such as funding an emergency fund.
Mm,
Do you have a properly funded emergency fund? If not, could your tax refund go towards helping to fund your emergency fund?
hmm.
Because I think that'd be a really good use of the money.
Right.
Now, another aspect is looking at like, hey, a big one for people is debt. Do you have any type of like, credit? We're just gonna focus on here on like, the high
High
interest rate
interest.
debt.
Hmm.
So mainly credit card debt. Do you have any credit card debt that could be wiped out or a big portion of it be paid down by using your tax refund?
Okay.
Because a lot of times people get a tax refund and they just want to blow it on something fun,
They go
which I
shopping, they
understand.
plan a
Like,
vacation.
yes, I understand that. And it could potentially be used for that. But I want you to look at your financial situation and what do you need?
Prioritize.
Prioritize. Like,
Yeah.
obviously, we love vacations, but if you have a lot of credit card debt or you don't have a properly funded emergency fund, the money could better be served there.
Right. Well, and you don't have to use the emergency fund depending on how much it is, right? There's a
Tax
big
refund.
difference. Yeah, sorry. The tax refund, there's a big difference between I'm getting $500 back and I'm getting $5,000 back,
Correct.
right? So that obviously matters, but you don't have to use it for one thing.
No.
So you could, let's say you are getting $5,000 back. Like, could you put 2,000 into your emergency fund? Could you pay down $2,000 of debt? And could you put $1,000 into your high yield savings for a future vacation,
I mean, you
right?
could also like I said, I mean, granted you said vacation, you could also look at possible planned expenses you have in the year coming up. So let's just say, for example, your best friend's getting married and you're her maid of honor. So you're going to have to pay for a dress, maybe like a bachelorette party,
It adds up
hotel,
quick.
flight. So, things that you
Rental
have going on
car.
through the course of the year that you can now plan for, maybe you could put it towards paying for that so that you don't go into debt for those expenses.
Yeah.
Really what it is honestly examining your individual circumstance. And once again, that goes to planning,
Hmm.
looking at your own personal life and planning your needs out.
Right. And you always remind people that planning is a verb,
Yes.
right? It's something that you actively do. It's not just a one time thing, it's like a constant
I mean,
thing.
even if you think about it on like a bare basis, like for example, with you and I, we are running Apple Notes that we update every Sunday night as far as what our plans, what's going on this week that we both need to be on the
It's
same
literally
page
called
about.
Sunday Night Notes.
Yeah. So we're like, oh, okay, kids have swim on this day, they have therapy on this day. Oh, Jess
Sewing
has
lessons on this
Jess
day.
has a later meeting than normal on this day so that I know like, hey, I got to make sure that I'm available to take care of dinner or stuff like that, whatever it may be. But it's planning. We're doing it anyways in all aspects of your life. You're
Hmm.
planning in other aspects. You just don't think about it that way necessarily. You
Yeah.
think about financial planning as something different, but it's just a different aspect of planning.
Right. You're planning the birthday parties. You're planning what you're going to do for Valentine's Day. You're planning what
Even
like,
if you're if you're a
yeah.
workout person, a lot of people plan their workouts before they get to the gym.
Right, right. Or meal plan. If you're
Yeah.
a meal planner, like, okay, you're planning what you need to get from the grocery store. How are you going to cook it? How are you going to package it? Like, all of those things are plans. But you're right. People have this hang up because it's money, because it's finance, because it's intimidating, because it's all the things. And it's emotional, right? Money is
Yes.
emotional. And so people have a hard time thinking about it in the same way of like, I'm planning my son's birthday, which you've done every single year since your son was born, but planning for your tax refund feels like this really big daunting thing.
Yeah, and you don't necessarily have to make it that big of a deal. Like you can really, like I said, if one of the things, like I said, we're always talking about is using Monarch Money. It's a really easy way to know what's going on in your financial life on a day-to-day, month-to-month basis. You
Mhm.
can easily look on there and see, hey, oh, I have some credit card debt,
Mhm.
or I have this other debt that I want to, or I can see like my emergency fund is not where it needs to be.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be this long, drawn out, hours upon hours thing. Like it
Right.
really can just be getting the low hanging fruit of the needs that you have in your financial life.
Yeah. What about the people who maybe they're getting the refund and they're like, "Well, I don't want to give the government a free loan anymore. What do I need to do to fix that?"
Well, if you're a W 2, you're going to make changes to your W 4 with your employer. As far
Okay.
as, for example, one scenario might be like, if you've had kids, if you've had like things in your life change where you have additional deductions
Mhm.
and they're taking out too much from your paycheck based upon your situation.
Okay. Okay.
That's ultimately what it is. It's like they're estimating what you're going to make out throughout the course of the year, and they're taking it out of each paycheck. And
Mhm.
that's based upon, like I said, your individual situation. Like, do you have one kid? Do you have two kids? Other things. Are
Other
you,
dependents,
yeah,
yeah. And for some reason, some companies make it easier. And I've been with companies where it's like, answer these 4 questions and we will figure out your deduction for you. And then there's other companies that are like, look at this form, answer this question, go down to box 27. Is box 27 an A or a B? And it's a little bit more
yeah,
difficult and it
yeah.
feels
It all
intimidating. And
depends.
you're like, every year, you're like, I'm doing
Yeah,
this
and the
wrong.
thing is, like, obviously that kind of falls under HR's umbrella.
Yeah,
But is HR really necessarily equipped to understand your individual tax situation? Not
probably not.
necessarily. So
Hmm.
you might need to do some education on your own
Right,
to understand what changes you didn't make in order to make sure that the proper amount's being taken out if you don't want to have a large tax refund at the end of the year and you want
right.
more in each paycheck, each
Yeah.
pay period.
I want my money as full as possible,
But
as much as possible throughout the year.
But here's the thing is you also too, like, once it comes back to the behavior aspect. So if
Mhm,
you're someone that is used to having a large tax refund at the end of the year and
mhm.
you want to change that to not have that, make sure that money that you're having more money in each of your paychecks doesn't get lost in the
Yes, that you
abyss.
have a plan
That
for
you have a
it.
plan for it. Because if you
Yeah,
already had a plan for your tax refund and you
mhm.
still want to kind of do the same planning, you got to make sure that a little bit of additional money that you're going to have in each paycheck, you have a plan for it to
You're
capture
gonna
it
put it to
and
work.
put it to work.
Yeah, absolutely, that's a great call out. So, as you're thinking about not only getting your taxes done on time or, filing for an extension on time, thinking about what you're going to do with your tax refund, looking at your individual situation, looking at your high interest debt, looking at your emergency fund, looking at upcoming expenses that you know you're going to need to cover, and making a plan. You don't just want to, whether it's $200, $500, $5,000, whatever that might be, you don't want to just get that check or get that direct deposit and not have a plan for your money
Yeah.
because that's where it just disappears. So look at your debts, look at your upcoming expenses, look at your emergency fund, and figure out where that money could be best
I also
utilized.
just forgot to mention, if you have your debts and all those things taken care of, maybe put into an IRA,
Right.
investing
And
wise,
yeah,
have the
invest for
growth.
your,
So there's, the positive aspects, not just maybe taking care of quote unquote negative things in your financial situation. It could be also just propping yourself up for, some investment growth as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I know there's a lot of buzz at the beginning of the year about maxing out your IRA as soon as possible, which, obviously has its benefits because then it can compound for longer. But as long as you're actively investing and you're managing your investments, I mean, that's where you want to be.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, hopefully, if you do get a tax refund, it's an exciting time for you to make some progress with your financial goals. And whether that's debt payoff or emergency fund or investing or planning for something fun that you have coming up, we hope that this episode helps you wrap a plan around your money, give your money a job to do because that's really what we want is we want your dollars to have a job and we hope we gave you something to think about when it comes to potentially getting a tax refund or deciding to set yourself up to not have that same refund next year. Whether you think it's a free loan to the government or not, we are not here to judge that for you, but we do want to help you make sound decisions with your money. So hopefully this was a informative episode for you. Share it with a friend, share it with a family member, and we will talk to you next week. Thanks for tuning in.
Sugar Daddy Podcast, yo. Learn